Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. In this video, we are looking at the NBA slate for tonight. We have just a 5-game slate, although right now it's a little bit tricky to nail down some core pieces because we're waiting on some pieces of news, and I'm sure we'll get some more injury news as the day goes on. But let's go ahead and get into the video. As always, I appreciate if you hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Yesterday's slate was kind of a wacky one. I wanted to build around Embiid and Towns, and they ended up both being snowflakes, not coming through at all, even though they were both missing a high-usage player on their team. So I was expecting them to combine for like 130, 120 at least, and they combined for like 80 something. But it still was somewhat close in cash games, just fell short because of those guys. And then did get the Toronto Raptors pieces right because they played their guys so many minutes. Van Fleet played north of 40. Van Fleet, Svi Makai, Luke, Gary Trent were solid. But ultimately, you needed some other pieces. And some crazy value guys did go off. Like Poole went nuts in the late game, although he was like, I mean, he wasn't even popular because there's so many other good plays on the slate. But let's get into this one. 5 games, not too crazy. You can check out Prize Picks. Use my code PROCESS for deposit match up to $100. They don't have their picks out early enough for me to make the video, but maybe when I do an afternoon update, if I have to do one, I'll have them in there. And you can check out Twitter if you want to get updates there. Right now, at point guard, we have Russell Westbrook. He's 10-7. He's going up against his former team once again. Russell Westbrook's price tag is steadily rising, even though he hasn't done much this year. The games that he did do well were when they were missing LeBron James. Put up 64 and 59. Otherwise, he's just been kind of taking a back seat. He's been flirting with some double-doubles, some triple-doubles, but he's not been worth 10-7. He's not even been worth 9-9, 9-7 in those games. The only thing I think they've jacked up his price tag is because he's facing his former team. But if that's going to make you want to pay almost $11,000 for him, you can do that. Personally, that is not going to make me pay $11K for Westbrook. I'd rather go down here. Like, Donovan Mitchell is questionable. That's going to be a big piece of news. It is the second game on the slate, 7:30, so we'll hopefully get that news before lock. But I'm looking at like SGA, who continues to play big minutes in any sort of close game. If you don't like to check your fantasy scores during the night and just like to wait till the end, just look. If you play some of these Thunder guys, just look at their game, see what the score is. If it's a close one, then you can probably assume that SGA went off, because the only way they're keeping games close are if SGA happens to go off. And last one, he did go off. They lost by 5, even though they should have won because they were up by 9 with 3 minutes to go. But back-to-back threes from Paul George and Luke Kennard with the dagger to tie it. But ultimately, I think SGA is a good play. He's 84 on a short slate. We're still dealing with some injury news to some of these other guys here, and we don't have a ton of other lockdown top-paying options on the slate. So SGA, I like him a little bit more than Devin Booker, possibly a little bit more than Chris Paul if they get DeAndre Ayton back today, which is going to be a big piece of news because if Ayton is out, then you're going to be plugging in Kaminsky, who we might talk about. But 6K range here, I'm looking at Conley, Kevin Porter Jr., who was super productive last game, played 40 minutes. Another team that if the games are close, you're just going to see these young guys play huge minutes. Kevin Porter, Christian Wood played big minutes. And last game, Eric Gordon somehow got nauseous before the game, which happens. I'm not going to ultimately blame the guy, but it would have been nice to know if he wasn't going to play before that game locked. But Kevin Porter, I'll go ahead and plug him in again. He's just a little bit too cheap. You get huge tournament ceilings on these guys when you have people priced up like Westbrook. Trae Young is priced up in a difficult matchup. It's just tough for me to pay all the way up when I can get like Kevin Porter, who does give me like 40. Even he has 60-point upside. He's only going to get that like once, maybe twice a year. But if you get that right on a 5-game slate, you're going to be looking really, really good. Tyler Hero is 67. He continues to do big things. He plays starter level minutes off the bench. He's in play today on a short slate. Conley also, I do like him, but he's playing like 30 minutes. He can get hot. He's been shooting the ball really well from 3 on the season. He's shooting almost 50%. He had his first big game last time out. I don't know if he'll be able to do that twice in a row, unless Donovan Mitchell is out. If Mitchell is out, then definitely lock in Mike Conley. Then in the 5K range, you have Tyrese Maxey, who played like 30 plus 37 minutes last night. Wasn't productive. He's just kind of cooled off a little bit. Price tag is still steady on him. They're still without Tobias, so there's still opportunities for these other guys to come through. And Sixers on a back-to-back here. I think Embiid will play, but if they decide to hold him out, I wouldn't be surprised. They're going up against the Pistons, and it's a back-to-back for Embiid after he played 34 minutes. But he did get Monday off, so I think there's a better chance that he does play. Although you might be looking at 30 minutes for Embiid instead of 34. Cade Cunningham shot the ball awfully. So bad once again, 2 of 14. He got up to 29 minutes though, so that's a great sign. And I'll continue to play Cade Cunningham. His minutes are going up. And they didn't even play him at the end of the game because they were down by almost 30. So I will plug Cade Cunningham in again. I'm expecting him to shoot 1 of 15 now, just with the way his shots have been falling and the way his games have gone. Started at 1 of 9, then 2 of 14. Heck, maybe we'll get a 3 of 20 day today for Cade Cunningham. But if he gets up to 30 plus minutes, he's just too good of a spot for me not to like him. Just for a guy that is that cheap, has so much talent in the world, I'm not going to continue to let, maybe I'll let some other people not play him because of the game logs. But even if he has a couple more bad games, if his price tag is still this cheap, on a 5-gamer where we're looking for value, I will just be playing Cade Cunningham because it's just the right play in my mind. So right now we have Kevin Porter and Cade Cunningham. Other plays at the shooting guard position here. Cam Reddish is 46. He's been decent early, but they have a lot of guys, so maybe he does a little bit more things today, even though the matchup is tough. If they're without Collins, who was questionable last night, ended up playing, but there's a back-to-back, so there's a chance there's no John Collins. If Lou Dort plays, he's very cheap at just $4,400. He's been getting you like 20 fantasy points every single game as his floor. So that's somewhat safe at this price tag, and he does give you upside if he happens to hit some shots. And then you have like Josh Jackson at 43, not that interested. Shake Milton does give you upside, but they haven't been playing him a lot of minutes off the bench, which I would have thought they would have, but they gave Maxey 37 and Shake Milton like 20 last night. He hasn't really topped more than 20 yet, so I don't know. I would have liked him to see him play more, but that's just not what Doc Rivers wants to do at this point, I guess. And Kevin Huerter, did he get back into the rotation? I mean, why wouldn't he be in the rotation? He played 23 minutes, so he got him from extra minutes. He's only $3,900. He's cheap. He's a little bit risky because you're going to need him to hit shots. He shot 7 of 9 to put up 22 fantasy points. If he's not shooting the ball well, you're going to be looking at like 6 to 10 fantasy points. But he's still cheap enough that it's worth a shot. And if there's no Collins, he looks really better. He looks a lot better. So he's a decent value option that we could look at, depending on some of the other news that we get today. And Malik Monk is down to 32, but he just hasn't been playing a lot of minutes. 13 minutes, 19 now. He's kind of been relegated. So, and then some of the Sixers guys are priced up here, like Korkmaz is up to 47. If there's no Donovan Mitchell, you're just going to be loading up on the Jazz guys. Like Joe Ingles would be a great play. Conley, Bogdanovich would be awesome plays here. I like Josh Giddey at 58. Just potentially without Lou Dort, we saw him play big minutes. If Lou Dort is out again in a close game, he'll be looking at 35 minutes or so, I would assume. He's starting to be productive, shoots a lot of shots. Him and SGA just take a lot of the shots on offense, which they should because nobody else should be really shooting a lot of shots. But Giddey's been productive, not only in terms of scoring, 3 straight games topping 10, but he's been dishing out a lot of assists, gets you a lot of rebounds, and he's been productive with the steals and blocks. So lots of good things to see out of Josh Giddey. Put up 38 most recently against this Lakers team, who have not been good defensively. Like, they're bottom 5 in NBA in terms of opponents' points per game. They do a good job at not turning the ball over just because their team is filled with veterans. But it doesn't really matter. Like, if the Thunder are going to be able to move the pace and push the pace, Giddey is going to be productive at 58. Hopefully Lou Dort doesn't play because that would make Giddey look even better. And then you have guys priced up like Tatum is almost 10K, Butler is 96. That game is going to be a little bit slower. Miami plays great defense. I don't want to pay 10K for those guys on this one. Korkmaz, don't really want to pay 47 for him. I'll be looking down like Niang a little bit more. I think 44 for a guy that came off the bench yesterday, but was productive. He was one of the value pieces. Ended up sticking with him, and he did do really well. Shot the ball 4 of 8 from distance. Does give you some rebounding upside. Maybe you can get a couple of assists. But ultimately, his price tag has also risen a little bit, so he's not like a slam dunk play. But I think he's still a strong option on a 5-gamer without Tobias. And then Duncan Robinson is 42. He looks somewhat affordable and appealing. And then Huerter and Hunter looks like good, decent value plays. Maybe if Collins is out, they would look a lot better. And then if there is no DeAndre Ayton, then you're going to be looking at Cam Johnson, but you're really going to be looking at the power forward, which would be Kaminsky. The Matisse Thybulle looks like a good option today. You started last night and you played 38 minutes. So if they start him again today, you'd expect him to play big minutes just because he's going to be out there for his defense. And if he's playing that many minutes, he's going to run into blocks and steals, which he ultimately does anyways, because on the season in just 24 minutes, he's averaging 4.5 stocks per game. Almost 4.5 stocks per game, which is crazy. But that's what he's known for, and he's just going to be able to run into some rebounds as well as getting a lot of blocks and steals, especially against the Pistons. Turn the ball over a lot. Power forward options here. You have LeBron Davis, top end, both above 10K. Like, I don't try to force the Lakers into my lineups when they're all healthy. Grant is 68, Collins 71. Tougher spot there for John Collins. Carmelo's been raining down threes all year, but he's up to 53. I think Bazley looks appealing if there's no Lou Dort again. Even if Dort plays, you could still play Bazley. He's going to be looking at around 30-plus minutes today. He's been really disappointing to watch shoot the basketball. He's 21% from 3, 37% from the floor, but he does get you rebounds, outside chance to get you a double-double. Daniel Tice is questionable. If he misses tonight once again, then KJ Martin, who we talked about a little bit in the last video, said he would be a great value piece if there was no Tate. But Tate ended up playing, but it was Gordon who didn't play, and that led to KJ Martin play 28 minutes. And if Gordon is out and there's no Tice once again, then I would be gladly plugging KJ Martin. He's been super productive. They should be giving guys like him a lot of minutes. Don't know why they haven't been until now. But ultimately, Kaminsky would be the best play at the position if there is no, well, at least for the value pieces, if there is no DeAndre Ayton. He started the second half. He outplayed JaVale McGee. He was like, Valanciunas was on pace for 80 fantasy points until Kaminsky came into the game, and he did a good job slowing down Valanciunas. JaVale McGee was getting eaten alive by Valanciunas. Moving on to center, Embiid is 10-5. This would be the day Embiid goes for 80 after played him yesterday at super low ownership. 18, 9, and 7 for him. Didn't even get a double-double. And he played 34 minutes. He just dominated this Detroit Pistons team on the 28th. Isaiah Stewart is no match for him. Put up 59, 30, and 18 for Embiid in that game. If he plays, I think he's a really strong option, even though it's a back-to-back on the road. If you are a little bit scared with the minutes, you could go down to Christian Wood. I know DraftKings has Rudy Gobert out right now, but he's not on the injury report. You haven't seen Fantasy Labs. You haven't seen Underdog NBA tweet about it. If you look at the NBA injury report, he's not on there. So I think this should get corrected at some point. Like, DraftKings probably already got a bunch of tweets about it. They just haven't corrected it yet. But if Gobert plays, then he's 86. Not the most appealing price tag. I'd rather go $200 more for Christian Wood or go down to Bam Adebayo at just $8,100. I think Bam looks like a great play. I wish some of these guys were power forward eligible. That would be nice. And then at the bottom here, if they happen to hold Embiid out, then Drummond will be a lock against his former team. And DeAndre Ayton at 66 looks like a great play if he does suit up. It's a 10 o'clock game. We probably won't know. Well, there's a chance we won't know. So you might want to leave one of your spots open for swap ability. And then we haven't seen Al Horford play on back-to-back yet this year. I think they've had one, maybe two back-to-back sets. But Horford has been so good for the Celtics, 40-plus in every single game, except for the opener where he played just 25 minutes. It's been awesome for Al Horford kind of resurrecting his career. Too bad the Celtics still can't get that many victories. They did win last night, but it's not that much of a surprise to beat the Magic. But if Horford is out, which there's a chance he could be, because he didn't play in the first back-to-back set, then Robert Williams would be a tremendous play at $5,800. They're going to need his size out there against Bam. In the game without Al Horford, in the game against Charlotte on a back-to-back, he put up 45. It did go into overtime, but he's just going to get you a lot more rebounding opportunities. Horford has not only been taking a lot of his rebounds away from him, but he's been taking some of his dunks at the basket and just getting the ball a lot more in the paint. Whereas Williams now would have the whole floor to himself. They'd probably stretch out with Grant Williams at the 4, so Williams would be able to get a lot of the rebounds and some putbacks and some blocks and stuff like that. So Williams at 58, if Horford is out, would be one of my favorite center options on the slate. And we have $6,400 left. I'm expecting this core to change quite a bit depending on the news that we get. But just give me SGA for now. If there's no Dort, it's fine. Even if Dort plays, not much of a difference. SGA is going to continue to play big minutes, take a lot of shots on the team. He's been consistent recently, 46 in 3 out of 4, 40 plus in 5 of his last 6, or 1, 2, 3, or 4 of his last 5. If the game is close, which the Lakers have been keeping a lot of games close, they almost lost to the Rockets last game without Eric Gordon at home. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Thunder hang in this one, maybe even pull out an upset. This is the core for now. 54 left for the last 2 spots. Let's talk about FanDuel. So FanDuel here, point guard plays. Westbrook is 92, so a lot different than 10-7 on DraftKings. Trae Young is also a lot better of a play. If Donovan Mitchell plays, he's 8K. That looks great. And then you have SGA, Chris Paul. Kevin Porter is just 59. I'll be getting to that price tag. We're finally seeing Kyle Lowry start to be productive. He's 59. Back-to-back games of north of 38. He's starting to hit his shot, so finally starting to get somewhat comfortable, I would say, with the Heat. Still plays big minutes in a close game, so I will be putting Kyle Lowry into my point guard spot, fully expecting him to go back to shooting 2 of 10 from distance. And Cade Cunningham is down to 46. He was like 5K plus on FanDuel. He's playable. He looks a lot better on DraftKings, though, just with how many other good spots we have on this one. And then Maxey is 54. He's kind of fine at that price tag. Shooting guard, Butler is 10-3. Not going to be paying 10K for Butler, most likely. If I do, it'll be at the small forward spot. But you could probably go down to like Jaylen Brown, 84. Devin Booker, $80, $200. Had a tough shooting game. And then I like SGA at 76. Josh Giddey, 6,000. And then depending on some of the, maybe the Hawks news, you could look to Bogdanovich, Reddish. But Reddish is too expensive at 53. And then if there's no Mitchell, then you're going to be looking to load up on these Jazz guys like Clarkson, Ingles, Conley. Ingles only 44, so that would be a great play. But I'm going to go ahead and put in SGA once again at the shooting guard spot here. Small forward, we have Tatum at 94. That's a pretty appealing price tag. Tyler Hero, 64. That's something I don't want to need to force in, but I think he's playable if you make a bunch of teams. But I'll put in Kevin Porter. Baisley looks a lot better on DraftKings than 56 on FanDuel. And then sub like 5K, you have Jay Crowder, who looks like a good play if there's no DeAndre Ayton, but just get some couple extra rebounding opportunities in the front court. Thibault is 44, so that's the price where he should be. And Cam Johnson, Gallo, depending on some of the news that we get out of there, and KJ Martin would be a great value if they're without Tice or without Gordon. Power forward, like Christian Wood a lot, 79 is just a little bit too cheap for a guy that plays huge minutes. If they start McGee again and there's no Ayton, then expect Christian Wood to go north of like 50 fantasy points, even though I think they'll quickly put in Kaminsky. But Christian Wood is still such a tough spot for people to defend because he shoots threes, he drives to the paint, he can shoot close, he can shoot far, shoots some mid-rangers, and ultimately just gets a lot of usage, so he's putting pressure on opposing bigs. And Robert Williams is 61. I don't think Horford will play on a back-to-back, but that's a 7:30 game. We should get that news before lock, so that would be a great option if he is indeed playing without Horford. And Kaminsky will be a good option here. Crowder will be a great option as well. And then center, you have Embiid at 9.6. That looks great at that price tag. So basically, it's Embiid for me if I'm going to be paying up, or if there's no Al Horford, I'll be going down to Robert Woods. Or Robert Woods, I meant Robert Williams. Not football is on my mind. Robert Williams, you could play him at power forward and go to Embiid at center if you wanted to. But I feel good about these 5 right now. Kyle Lowry, cheap. SGA, monstrous upside, affordable, 76. Kevin Porter, huge upside. Christian Wood, big upside. And then Robert Williams can maybe get you multiple blocks and steals today and get you a double-double if there's without Horford. So that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. Best of luck tonight, and I'll see you all next time.